They charged us for the borrowing. I believe that some of the funding went into the Russell Bay of Islands scheme. They charged us, but they did not have any record to acknowledge that we were already paying, having already paid, if you know what I mean. Sorry to be obscure about that. They charge for an availability rate, even if you are already paying a connective rate, so you pay 2 charges. But then if it turns out that you had a section on which you planned to build and you'd be paying the availability rate on that for 10, 20 years, whatever, if they then decide they can't connect you, they don't refund that rate. And this is also in the evidence that is before you. They have discretion, maybe, to refund 5 years of it. Now, I want to say to you that Council knows this is wrong, and that before the previous mayor retired, he arranged for all the households in Hokianga to get a $400 rebate each. If that's not an admission of liability, says the lawyer in me, I don't know what is. But I don't think we want to pay any more. I really don't. I do think that we are worn down, disheartened, and somewhat untrusting of council, and I don't think we have much confidence in getting justice. I don't know what else to say about that. I have in my initial submission suggested how the objection that I've raised might be met, and I should say that I'm speaking partly because I can. I think a lot of people don't feel confident speaking to tribunals and hearings, and I feel if perhaps you had been able to have one day of the hearings over here, you might have gotten a lot more input from us. I don't mean that as a criticism, it's just a slight regret, you know. But because of my past history and because I'm retired, semi-retired, I feel that I sort of have a duty to use the resources that I do have. I'm assuming you're allowed to accept hearsay evidence, so I'm going to say I asked Lloyd down at the TIP, he runs our TIP, and I think that he's an expert who should be very much consulted and heard. I said to him, I don't suppose you'll be going to the hearings, and he said, no, it's not my thing. And I said, well, if you could say one thing that you would like heard, what would it be? And he said, I'd like them to do something about the stink. The stink all around town, he said. He said he thought it might be from septic tanks that are not often enough cleaned. I mean, no one even knows where mine is. They're not mapped, and they're not cleaned. So, kia ora to Lloyd, who does such a wonderful job, and his tip is right next door to the treatment pond there. So I think he's worth listening to, albeit second-hand. I don't know, there's not a lot else that I can say that I think could be even half as useful as all the amazing submissions you've had, but I just would like to suggest that perhaps one of the difficulties comes from the instructions that councils give to their officers who have to make whatever work is going to happen, and that perhaps one of the most useful things we could work on is to articulate the instructions in such a way that there is simply no question of the waste going into the water, or of a failure to implement. And I just offer this as like a preliminary proposal for consideration for something that might be a whole lot better. So I'm suggesting that something like a direction that in partnership with communities, whoever is supposed to do this, design and implement a culturally appropriate, fiscally responsible wastewater treatment program for land dispersal and disposal that serves the best interests of the communities, the planet and future generations. If you put culturally appropriate first, you can make somewhat clearer that it's really not about cheapest. And I would just like to conclude. I think that I don't know if I thanked the tribunal and Alyssa for being just so helpful, and for the great honour of being able to speak to you and all the previous speakers. But I would like to, because I don't have a waitau, I'd like to end with a poem that I came across. It's by a woman called April Lim. I don't know who she is. It's very short. It's called Vein, as in the veins in your arm. Did you know, when a river dies, the earth does not forget. It remembers each depleted stream's body like a keepsake, buries them away, but never completely moves on.
Thank you, Ms. Kate. You had a lot to contribute there. I've taken a page and a half of notes, and you've obviously thought about things long and hard. You've read all the documents. It's a magnificent contribution that you've just made, so thank you very much. And I think we might put you on charge of the drafting the conditions of consent.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm really grateful.
So I'm not sure if you've been tuning in over the last few days, and I'll just say it again for anyone who's in the room for the first time that there will be a process and an opportunity for all submitters to feed into and comment on the revised set of conditions that we will be expecting from the applicant in the future, and that may be sometime in July, and we will be reconvening. So I urge you, with your expertise, to help us with that and feed into that process. So kia ora, thank you for your contribution.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so the next person that I have on the list is Wendy Henwood on behalf of WY Corporation.
Tepu, kia ora koutou, kia ora koutou katoa. This morning I'm speaking on behalf of the Rawene Corporation. Ko rākau tapu te maunga, ko tapu ai te whenua, ko tapu ai te awa, ko mai tūpoto me Ngāti Here Oku Hapu, ko te rarawa te iwi, ko Hokianga whakapau karakia te moana. Ko Wendy Hen with taku ingoa. Kia ora. Kia ora koutou. So, this will be quite brief. Yesterday I spoke on behalf of the Mai Tūpoto Marae, so this is the same hapu, we're just further down the road, and but I'm talking from a Māori land block known as Tapuai. It's a Māori incorporation looking after 2,000 odd hectares, and we had the farm was out of our hands for many, many years, and we got it back about 40 years ago in a really run-down state, and so we've spent the last 40 years trying to pick it up. We're getting there. So we're a beef breeding block, and forestry, production forestry, big areas of native bush, and honey is the other thing we're into. So we have, for everything that we do, we take very much a 4-po approach, which is common to many people in the way that they operate, but it's pretty important to us that we are always factoring in the cultural, social, environmental and economic well-beings, and it's not all about just making money. Employment is a really big thing for us. I guess the thing that I want to stress is that there's so many regulations now for farms, and we have just new stuff coming out all the time that we have to act on, and yet it doesn't seem to be, the compliance doesn't seem to be an option for us as landowners and farmers, but it seems to be the compliance for our councils seems to have a pretty easy way. You know, it's just things are delayed and delayed and delayed, whereas that's not the case for us trying to work on the land and do farm stuff. And it seems to me that it's quite openly that it's all right. It's not all right for cow tickle to go in our waters. Everyone's really staunch about that, but it's actually okay for human tickle to go in the water. It doesn't make any sense. So on our farm block, we take our kaitiaki responsibilities really seriously, and we don't do it because of compliance. We do it because it's the right thing to do. So for years, since we've had our whenua back, we've been fencing off waterways. We have a huge wetland, a repo, which you know is regarded as the kidneys of our environment. At the gateway of our farm block, we fenced that off many years. No one told us we had to do that. We do it because it's the right thing to do. We're not into just ticking boxes for the sake of saying, yeah, we've done the compliance. What else was there? So yeah, just to reiterate some of the things that have been said about just being crazy that in this day and age, 21st century, and we still it's okay to put human waste into our harbour. It's very clear that our values don't align, our Māori values don't align with the council council way of thinking, and we have to just act on these things like it's all one water. You know, how hard is that? We need to stop looking at things in isolation. We need to be acknowledging all the interconnections that we have through our atua, through our tūpuna, through our taiao. We're all connected. And by taiao, I'm meaning all of our different aspects of our taiao and waters. So yeah, just stop it. And the other thing that's a real moha to us is just, and we find this on the farm all the time, getting documentation that talks about, you know, on one hand acknowledging the importance of Māori values and stuff like that, but then doing nothing about it. Just yeah, why bother? And Paul yesterday talked about the statutory acknowledgement that Te Raroa has. And, you know, so how much more evidence is needed to show how significant this wahapū is. So just in conclusion, I'll just go through some of our expectations, you know, for this next phase. And the basic one to be able to move forward is to have strong community input. Whānau hapu iwi community all need to be there. It's not an option. Catchment-wide approach to a Hokianga plan, and acknowledging that the wastewater treatment plants isn't the only contributor to the bad stuff that's happening in our harbour. So a catchment-wide plan would pick up all of those things. And some of it's historic, you know, it's our deforestation going way, way back. And then some, while I think our farm at Tapawai is doing a pretty good job with environmental practices, some aren't. And there's fertilisers and forestry practices and things that aren't that good in places too. So they will need to get sorted. Definitely need a working group to actually make this thing move. We don't want to be sitting here in the same place in a year's time. It's got to happen pretty quickly. And we've heard quite a lot about different systems. Electrocoagulation sounds to be a winner, and we know there's examples all around the world and even in our own Taitokerau region, so we shouldn't be afraid of that. And I just see a whole lot of opportunities that come from developing some new systems, land-based systems, and many people have talked about them: composting, worm farms, irrigation, and definitely local management of aspects of those things, so that we actually create some employment, and you know, then we start to understand what those systems are about, and yeah, we'll look after them. Climate change, that's been said quite a few times, got to be part of it. You know, we know we're going to have random weather events. We just have to be prepared for those. Meaningful harbour monitoring, and you know, there's all sorts of models, and Kappa Morgan talked this morning about the Māori model. That's been around for quite a while now, and many of us are familiar with it. It's quite simple to get your head around. So yeah, there's cultural health indexes, but that's got to be part of it. And again, just stop the focus on panicking about the cost without actually doing the detailed work to see what the costs actually are. And fussing about the unsuitability of our clay land, you know, get over it. We've got to work with it. There'll be places that are okay. And I know that many landowners would only be too happy to be part of that solution. I know all of us as individuals would be. So yeah, be creative, be courageous, and just find ways. And we've got the same old bottom line: get the discharge to land. It's the only acceptable solution. And so Tapawai objects to the consent application that has been put forward. And yeah, we'll continue to exercise our rangatiratanga and our mana whenua over these matters. So, kia ora tātou.
Kia ora.
Whakarongo ake au ki te reo e tangi nei e wawatatanga mai Hokianga whakapaukara kia Hokianga whakapaukara kia Kia ora tātou.
Right, set up our next
I appreciate you.
one.
Had the points and not gone for repetition, so I appreciate that. The next person on the list, I think, is, forgive my pronunciation, Maitai Rawene Kapiti? How do I go? Vitai. Are they here? Maybe we'll go down the list if somebody else is ready, just so we can make most of the time. So the next person after that is Darlene Kala. Kia ora, you're the lady from Auckland.
Oh, yeah.
Come forward, thank you.
Morena kia tātou. Ka tika ka tuku mihi te mea tutahi ki te rungarawa. Moana nei manaaki tanga kia tātou katoa. Aku mihi hoki kia tātou. Kia koutou me o koutou. Kōrero kua kōrero hia. I nei wiki ko te atāhua o koutou nei kōrero. Ko waiau, ko pauerua te maunga. Ko waitangi te aua. Ko Ngāti Rāhiri, Ngāti Kawanga hapu, ko te tiriti, te whare tapu. Te whare pare mata Māori o Nutirene. Ko ngā puhi nui tonu tei, ara ko Darlene tāna tōku ingoa. Ka tika tērā, whakatauki. Ka mimiti te puna i tau mārere, ka toto te puna i Hokianga. Ka toto te puna i tau mārere, ka mimiti te puna i Hokianga. This whakatauki translates to something like, when the wellspring of tau mārere is empty, the wellspring of Hokianga is full. And when the wellspring of tau mārere is full, the wellspring of the Hokianga is empty. Our tupuna Rāhiri drew on the imagery of the two rivers, the Hokianga in the west and Tau Mārere in the east, to show his sons, Uenuku and Kaharau, that what happened to one affected the other. Their fortunes were intertwined, and so the whakatauki represents an alliance of destinies of Ngāpuhi on the Taitama Wahine on the eastern side and the Taitama Tāne on the western coast. I hold a bachelor degree from Massey University in Chemical Technology and Masters in Business Administration with honours from Solvay Business School in Brussels in Belgium. I worked as an environmental scientist during the period 1992 to 1998, so just at the advent of the Resource Management Act, for the Horizons Regional Council. I was their technical expert to review resource consent applications for industrial discharges to land, water and air. I work now as a kaimahitaia, supporting whānau, hapu and community to restore the life-supporting capacity of our natural world and to cut ongoing pollution and exploitation of our natural world. I weave my own life's learnings as tangata Māori, as a scientist, as a business person, an activist, environmental campaigner, to support us to move forward and hopefully create healthier, resilient communities. I first became aware of the sewage discharges in 2020. At that time, I was the Green Party candidate for Northland General seat in that election, and I supported the delegation of Ngā Hapua Hokianga, our tamariki, mokopuna, pakeke, kaumātua, to present to the councillors of Northland Regional Council, requesting them to notify publicly the consent applications that we are looking at today. At that time too, I met with Andreas Kurama, and I learnt of the innovation in electric coagulation. I return now. I am a Green Party candidate for Tāmaki Makaurau, where I live. And I am also the kaiwhakahaere Māori within the Green Party of Aotearoa, to bring our full political support behind Ngā Hapua Hokianga in their bid to hold the kāwanga accountable for the desecration of the mauri, the mana and the tapu of Awawa, te wahapua te Hokianga nui atupe, and further out into Te Taioreho. We understand that Far North District Council's consents lapsed in 2016-2018, and minimal work has been done to upgrade or maintain those existing ponds. We've heard much evidence that Ngā Puhi never ceded sovereignty upon signing Te Tiriti o Waitangi, that the kāwana continues to breach Te Tiriti o Waitangi in terms of decision making, and that its agents are effectively unable to resolve their inadequate public health and safety for any of our communities, let alone tangata whenua. We heard too the cultural abhorrence of discharging human waste into water, that biomechanical waste treatment processes in and by themselves are not enough to treat the sewage to innocuous contamination levels. We hear too the challenges, and I am being generous, for Far North District Council to maintain, let alone operate their systems. There are viable treatment alternatives, such as EC. They exist, they're in operation at scale. Taipa, Mangonui, and also in smaller housing clusters in Kiriki. I have to say that I've been really, really moved by all the submissions that I've heard over this last week, tuning in via Teams, but I particularly want to acknowledge the mahi of Jesse McVeigh, Dallas Ma, for all your mahi in this respect. Regardless, this application insists to continue discharging and asking for a term of 35 years. They insist too that the cost of discharging treated waste to land is too expensive. They do this on the basis of a monitoring program that is wholly inadequate in terms of the Western science. I note that the monitoring is restricted to indicate a subset of water chemistry, ignoring the understating that the chemistry has changed radically over time. In my evidence here, I talk to microplastics, to viruses, to bacteria, to phosphorus even. Listening to our Hoa Dr. Kepa Morgan's testimony this morning when he's talking about the emerging contaminants and the high probability that we're going to find all of those in this wastewater stream. There is nothing of the understanding of the impacts on shellfish, on fish in general, or in seagrass or kelp. And I would challenge too the desktop modelling of coastal sea flow, particularly in light of, we've heard, climate change, but also increasing water temperatures and subsequent current flow. We've heard from mana i te whenua, who through sharing generously their pūkorero, waiata, mō tea, tiro maramataka, mātauranga Māori ki te katoa. We have been privileged to a fuller and wholesome assessment of the environmental effects of these discharges than any of the applicant's technical experts. And I mihi again to all those who have submitted. I would like us to consider opportunities for drawing a line in the sand and declining the application. I would like us to consider the opportunities that that step could bring for whānau, for hapu throughout the rohe. Declining would put the onus back onto the enforcement responsibilities of Northland Regional Council. And one might suggest that the enforcement actions with conditions may be a weaker mechanism than a short-term consent with conditions. However, it would send quite a clear message politically that the application of FNDC is wholly inadequate and it needs to go back to the drawing board. Secondly, that the situation must be sorted. A budget must be found. At this point, I am going to acknowledge the reality that Far North District Council is living in, that they are financially set up to fail. And at this point, it's not in my evidence, but I do note that central government distributes something like 17% towards district councils for funding purposes, where the OECD levels are more like 30%. So imagine the change out that that could create in terms of Far North District Council being able to engage expertise so that you could come actually with the step change technology capabilities that are out there in the world. And most importantly, the third point that I would suggest is that Far North District Council, we need you to listen and acknowledge the Indigenous wisdom as well as tino rangatiratanga and mana motuhaketanga in their deliberations to redesign future treatment of sewage as a resource, not a waste. So my submission, with due respect to the commissioners, is to decline these applications.
Kei henga hua ho te whenua aue te mama o taku wairua. E kore aue mā taki ho te tākanga ki te he kia tūpato whakarongo mai maharatia tikanga a tata tūpuna rui atu e aue. No reira, tēnā tātou, e te whare, tēnā tātou, kia ora hui mai no tātou.
Kia ora.
Kia ora, thank you. So have we got Ms. Rawene in the room?
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Mister. I hope so.
Apologies.
Oh, mai taki tōrai, koutou. Mea tūtahi e mihi atu ki tō tātou taihanga. Nāna nei hō mai, nāna nei tama mai, nāna i ngā mea katoa ki ao mara. Tūroa hoki ngā mihi ki te hapu whānui a Hokianga. Mō ngā haro takatonei ngā nā kaukoro. Mo rātou mai ngā pito o te Hokianga. A tinu a tāhua wenei koro mai te tīmatama o tēnei wiki, a tāi mo ki tēnei mo. Nā rei mihi atu kia koutou. A mihi atu ki te tepu, koutou nā kaimahi. Ma koutou hei e tai mai ki te whakarongo i a tātou nei koro. Tēnā koro. A mea ki te koro i a tātou. Mākui e tū tēnei wā hei mōreo mai wa tātou kōreo e roto a toku nei heke no te waiariki, nui o te rangi. Harako e tīmata mai e Hokianga, ka tai rere atu, ka tai ki kaipara, a muri rere atu, ka tai ki nunu. Ko e tēnei te takiwā o te waiariki. Mana tātou i tupuna, ko te rangi taua, i aru mai Hokianga. Māku koro te rā nei, ko tai mai kia whakatakato hea ngā koro o ngā mātua tupuna. Tōtai, tūroa he koro ki ngā kaimahi taku o noku nei whakaro, mai te timatanga o ngā resource management. Nō reira tēnā koutou. Ngā ko hui au ki te reo pei ki te wā, poto. And I see if I can arrange this jumble of things, because I'm just going to give it to you as it comes. I tried this in computers and all the models, they don't compete with me. Kia ora ana tātou. Oh man, nā taku pairau, I'm going to start somewhere where it gives credence to what I'm talking about. First of all, I wanted to show a bit of a tātai on how we come to be what I'm going to talk about. And this starts with our New Zealand Constitution Act, 1846. Section 9, Section 10 of the 1846 Constitution Act provided Māori, under Māori customary law, the right to self-government within their own native districts. For Māori laws to be recognised internationally, the Queen issued letters patent these laws. Then they become part of the laws of England and the United Kingdom. They are then enforceable as New Zealand law. The 1846 New Zealand Constitution Act was created to preserve Article 2 of the Treaty of Waitangi, TOW, for the preservation of Tunoranga Tiratanga, and to restrain the government from any attempts to govern Māori. The existence of the 1846 New Zealand Constitution Act is not commonly known. That's why I put it there as a basis for today. The New Zealand Constitution Act, Sections 9 and 10, and the Royal Charter, which stated, I quote, on the British Crown's Royal Charter, in cases arising between the Aboriginal inhabitants of New Zealand alone, the courts and magistrates shall, upon the word shall, uphold Māori customary laws and usages as the foreseen. Unquote, that is what is stated in the Royal Charter, Magna Carta of the Parliament of Westminster concerning New Zealand, who enacted sections 9 and 10 of the New Zealand Constitution Act in 1846, which is a common law doctrine and statute internationally recognised. That statute and that common law doctrine used together forms the common law under statute of Māori customary law. Tikanga me ngā kaua. In 1901, in the judgment of the Privy Council, where Lord Fillmore was presiding, he stated in his decision the case In the iti rire, Rawene versus the Public Trustee of New Zealand, he stated, I quote, Māori customary law enjoyed legal status in European colonial courts in New Zealand in the absence of any statute indicating otherwise, that statute being enacted by the native inhabitants themselves. From there, I would state that we created the Turi Whenua. So the Turi Whenua is compiled by 3 royal regents. They were appointed by the Queen to do their job and make sure that it was instilled into this country. That being Hohepa Mapiria, David Singh and Cliff Whiting. And of course today, we have the Turi Whenua in our mix. From the Turi Whenua, it created the Māori Incorporation legislation in 2004. Here's Māori Incorporation. And from that legislation, the Māori Inc. 2004 legislation, we created Hapu Native Council. Hapu Native Councils apply to the inextinguishable native title. It is live today, as I speak. A little background from me. I've been a resource management convener for at least 3 hapu for the last 30 years. Whangarei District Councils, Northern Regional Council, I've submitted many times, but I'm not a submitter today. Today I stand before you as rangatira, in my own right, for my own heke. The tupunas that I come from, and there's a few, they all signed the treaty. So we know we are standing on our tupuna whenua. And I'm addressing you not as a submitter, like I said, because my rights are not extinguished. I'm not talking about privileges and benefits, which is what is provided from the state here, for birth certificate persons. But not those, not to be mistaken. And I just make that because I haven't heard the status of anyone since I've been here. There's a status of being New Zealand Māori, that's under Parliament, and there's our status, being a native to the native title, the unextinguished native title. Therefore, under that protection, we have issued councils, police, corrections, with judicial notices. And most of them state, I'm going to quote, authorised agents noticed of affidavit of facts to the plaintiff, being Whangarei District Council or this Whangarei District Council, any council, and authorised officers. And today we of Waioriki, we do not consent being misrepresented, for we are rangatira exercising executive powers and equitable partners to His Majesty King Charlie III. And we just heard his oath. His oath said he would uphold the customs and practices of the people of this realm. That includes us. We intend to hold him to that. In accordance with He Whakaputanga o Te Rangatira Tanga o New Tirini 1835, the Treaty o Waitangi 1840, and as stated in the preamble of Te Turi Whenua Māori Land Act 93/95 Amendment, Section 2, Part 3, Section 253, and Section 5, which is, this shall bind the Crown, UK, and therefore New Zealand. All administrators of Parliament, New Zealand courts and other government departments, duly being royal subjects and servants of His Majesty, are the defendants in this instance. Why I say that? Because I'm standing in my order. That normally says if you have land, if you have a right to that, then you are the sovereign to this land. No land, no kingdom, no sovereignty. So I've just taken us there for a quick pairo ngā kaupapa. Step by step, we're heading towards that. Now, the notices we have given from our native council, and we are several throughout the motu, and growing, that our determinations made at the Assembly of Native Councils, this was done on 28th of October 2012 at our hui e Katikati e Tuapiru Marae. That all settlers organisations under the High Court ruling of a panel of 5 judges headed by Chief Justice at that time, Sororias, on the 19th of June 2003, no longer retain any lands or chattels to claim authority over or impose rules or regulations upon. All land purchases, transfers, gifts or conveyances of any sort, rules null and void under this ruling, be reaffirmed as native title land under tikanga understanding, and that all those lands come under the authority of the respective identified authenticated Hapu Native Council. The process of doing that is an authentication process. It determines the blood ties, whakapapa, down to our hapu. From there, the authenticated territorial block by map, can authenticate the actual boundaries of each hapu. Within the hapu strategy, no hapu takahia on another hapu. Hence, working together this week. Atahua, very beautiful. And although our God has been spilling our hearts out and telling the world what it is, sometimes we have to go back and look at what we're saying and what platform we're on, what we're standing is. Hapu established, and for instance, the assumed crown and right, which is Her Majesty the Queen in right of New Zealand, hasn't changed yet. The hapu established by Settlers Parliament of New South Wales and New Zealand, example, all hapu recognised by Parliament and receiving funding from them in any shape or form. Absolutely, authority is the Settlers Parliament, New Zealand. Settler Parliament approves or disapproves hapu decisions. Hapu comes under Settlers Parliament authority. Now, hapu proclaimed independent of Settlers Parliament. Example, Tikanga Law Society, incorporations, sovereigns, councils, these hapu organisations could also fall into the above category. Authority is always in dispute. Settlers Parliament has law and enforcement on their side. Proclaimed hapu has no law enforcement on their side. Settlers Parliament authority is superior. Hapu actions and decisions are monitored by Settlers Parliament. Settlers Parliament in the end is absolute authority.
Mr. Rawene,
I'm going on because that's what's happening today.
can I just help, or maybe direct you a little bit? There's been no question on the rights of hapu to be able to speak here, and they've all expressed that ability to do that.
Kia ora.
So the definitions that you're providing are not needed.
Well,
So
they establish how the hapu differences between those who stand on prerogative law and those who stand on the law of New Zealand.
So there's no differentiation for us who have spoken on their own rights to be able to speak here. So if you can progress to your points, please.
Well, then all I'll finish there is that the absolute authority belongs to native hapu. Kia ora. Say all the rest, just in case people don't understand, if you're standing as a New Zealand Māori, you're not over here standing in your sovereign capacity. Right? That's by birth certificate. So if you know that, you've heard that, that's the identification I was just giving as an example. But no, we're standing on our own tupuna, our own toto, and our own tikanga. So therefore, the foundations that we have been given us the right to stand as Hapu Native councils and direct things how they should be. And therefore, the determinations that are made by Te Waiori, and we will deliver those at a later case, to the authorities. Not to no commission, anyone else, but to the authorities. And that determination will be given by our Native Council and Native Court. That hasn't happened yet because we are yet to learn the outcome of this commission. So I reserve that to be dealt with later, after we have had a koti within our own tikanga, and then we will send those to the authorities that this pertains to. To me, that's all I want to say today. That's enough for us until we do our determinations. I just wanted to make sure there is a lot. Okay? I'll do that at a later date. Okay?
Kia ora.
Kia ora. We might mutu tēnei koro. As it is, we have a hui, a hapu whāngi, a Hokianga, me taumāre if we need it. And we talk about the next steps. We know Ngāpuhi has not seen it in sovereignty. Well, I've got a lot to say about what is Ngāpuhi as well. When I go to war, I put on my hat on the tumatauenga. I look the road, I don't talk. I shoot anything in front of me. So don't have to ask the Ngāpuhi to stand up. But when I go home, I take that off and I go on the rongo. My tātai whakapapa kupena becomes Te Waiori. We come out of the Pacific, out of Te Mono Nui a Kiwa. Our home is Hawaii too, and Hawaii Nui. So when you want to talk about us, we came down there in Maui's time, we're still here today, in Kupe's time, he followed us. And we named the mountains in this country, just to give you a quick overview, everybody. Mana kia ora pāna. Ko te triti, o Waitani, te triti o te rao. Ko te triti, o Waitani, te triti o te rao. Te no ranga, te ratanga, tuku iho. Te no ranga, te ratanga, tuku iho. Ara tuku iho, ara tuku iho. Ara tuku iho, ara tuku iho. Ana hui rana tau. Tēnā puta, kia hui rana tau.
I just want to make a comment that
Down we go again.
You know, law is very important. The statutes that we stand on, and we too are constricted by the statutory box in which we sit. So I just want to make that point that we have a lot in common. That we too will remain within the statutory box that we're bound by, unfortunately. Or fortunately, isn't it? That's the certainty we all have in the room is of the Lord. So, kia ora. Okay, we've got our last person coming on by team today, and Bernadette Papa, are you there?
Is this the last person by team, and then you've still got one more in the room? Or?
Sorry.
Oh, okay, good. That's right. Yeah, it's still good.
Just that he's got it for the Kia ora. Miss Papa, over to you. I'm not sure your mic is on.
Oh, this is coming in via Zoom whānau. We're just trying to hook up with them.
Good. Are we just doing a wee fiddle here as well to see if we can figure this out?
You're better now.
There she
We have you.
is.
Thank you.
We have made contact.
Mira tūtahi mihi nui ki ngā kuia kaumātua tamariki pakeke ngā kaukōrero o ngā whānau hapu iwi me ngā marae, me ngā kura. O te Hokianga, kua kōrero ki tēnei kaupapa I tēnei wiki. Ko ai hau, he uri tēnei, no waina maku me Omanoia, Bernadette Papa tōku ingoa, and thank you for this opportunity. It's been amazing listening in to all the presenters and all the reo of the whānau of the Hokianga this week. It's just been a privilege to even be a bystander in this process. I'd like to acknowledge, I think my main point is that I've come in this morning, I want to tautoko. My presentation today is really just to tautoko all those kōrero of the whānau that have come through this week. Far better speakers than I, and covered the full gamut of my thoughts and feelings on this matter, on the matter of these resource consents. I recently returned home to the Hokianga. I am a resident and ratepayer in Koutu, at Koutu Beach Road there, so the impacts on Mount Moana are direct for me and constant. So I'm really grateful also to have heard amazing speakers this morning, Dr. Kepa Morgan, standing in for his esteemed Hoa Rangatira, Dr. Robin Manuel, both good friends and good whanaunga of mine as well for many years. So just can't top what Kepa's contribution was this morning, in fact. And but I was also really pleased and tautoko as well, the kōrero of Linda Kay, who lives near the outfall at Kuhukuhu, and who, talking about the stink. I lived for many years near a pumping station in Tamaki Makaurau, and the smell from that was quite prevalent for many years until Council did some work on addressing the smell, and they kept it. So, but I think it's a very important indicator of the performance of the system, or the other performance for that matter. And I recall seeing an ecological report. I couldn't find it this morning to recheck my notes on it, but I do recall seeing ecological findings that there is impact on the marine, the kaimoana, the shellfish at Koutu. And that's a direct concern for me. I'm actually on a septic system over there in Koutu, so I feel like I'm paying rates to deal with other people's things. So I think my main concern is that it needs to be done better. This current practice is offensive, unwanted, and given the clear opposition expressed this week by Tangata Whenua, the whānau, no konei, it's a breach of te tiriti as well, because your treaty partner is clearly expressing opposition and serious unhappiness with the current practice. So I just can only tautoko the calls to look for better outcomes, look for better options, alternatives, and be more outcome-led. I think we should be aiming, the outcome should be to meet at least your quadruple bottom line. Because right now you're only doing one, if it's economic driven, and it's your smallest one, and if you look at Kepa's Māori model, you'll know that the wider issue is the environmental impact and the hapu, the impacts on us as people. Yes, we all need to go. I accept that. But it's how we do it, and we can do better. And I think this time presents us a real opportunity to take a good look at how it's been done. We know how it's been done. We're still living with that now. But we need to be looking to the future, to our mokupuna's mokupuna. And so, for me, it's just a real privilege to be able to get this opportunity to stand, to make a stand here on behalf of my mokupuna's mokupuna, so that they know, Nanny said, te mea, just like my nannies said, just like my parents taught me as well. So that's just me. My connection's a bit dodgy today, so I'm not going to labour my time here. Thank you for giving serious consideration to our submissions, and particularly to your to the reo of the whānau, hapu and iwi who reside and live with our beautiful, and we want it to stay that way. Te puno te ao marama, Hokianga nui aku pe, Hokianga whakapau karakia. Ngā mihi kia koutou.
Kia ora, Ms. Papa. Thank you very much for your time today and team singing to talk to us. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Kia ora. There's a hush over the room. We come to our final submitter, which is the Ngāti Korokoro Hapu and the Ngāti Korokoro Trust.
Ngāti Korokoro.
Sheena Ross is on the list.
Whānau, we're just waiting for our last submitters to arrive, which I'd have to erect my camera at the doorway because I feel something is going on. Let's have a titiro. Let's have a look. I'll just leave you fellas here for a minute.
To me that haven't really been questions, they're really statements, so I've refrained from asking those. I have another one here which is really a question for the panel, and I just wanted to, that's from Gina Ross, I just wanted to say that we're here to ask the questions, not to answer them, so it's not a question I can answer for her. It was really about the Environment Court and should we put this in the Environment Court. That's not how this process goes. I know there's a lot of old hands in the room that know the first point of contact is us, and if you don't like the outcome of us, that's where this will end up, which would be a big waste of money for everybody. So hopefully that's not necessary. I just wanted to add that I have had this pile of questions, and rest assured I've asked everything that I think is a question and not a statement.
Alisa?
Over here to Alyssa. I wanted to say, but I'm a hand like it is.
Those microphones which the wee bit make sure they're on, and they're quite directional, so just when you speak, make sure you get close. This goes up and down for you. Keep going. Over to you.
First of all, I'm not used to turning my back on now. However, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Kia ora.
In remembrance of Rudy Taylor, he always said, korokoro in the house. And we are the korokoro. I'll just get into it for you. I'll pass the copies out to at least pass out to you what I was reading today. Before the Northern Regional Council Hearings Panel, Ngā Te Korokoro Hapu Trust. Barnum District Council responded. In the matter of the Resource Management Act 1991, and in the matter of an application by Barnum District Council Resource Consent. Application APP 00389.01.03 and APP 0026667.01.04 open only o mapiri and kohu waste treatment plants. Parashina Rosni Motala, mandated Kakorero, for and on behalf of Ngā Te Korokoro Hapu Trust. Dated the 19th of May 2023, I'm not the man. Statement of evidence of Shina Ross, Nimotala, mandated Kakorero, for and on behalf of Ngā Te Korokoro Hapu Trust. In regards to my filing number 90, I would also like to add what I am speaking about today for the 19th of May 2023 at the Rawene Hall. Whakapapa. Ko Ngā Te Korokoro Hapu, ko Te Ramaro Te Maunga Tapu, ko Hokianga Te Moana Awa, ko Ngā Tātua Te Waka, ko Marae o Marae, Te Marae, ko Shina Rosni Moitara Aho. Introduction of who we are. I have been involved with utility claims since 1994. We lodged a claim for Ngā Te Korokoro Hapu Trust under Y1857. I am the claimant as well as the mandated Kakorero for and on behalf of Ngā Te Korokoro Hapu Trust. I will say mandated Kakorero as I was elected at a Huia Hapu of Ngā Te Korokoro. Clifford Morgan Royal was also elected as a mandated Kakorero for and on behalf of Ngā Te Korokoro Hapu as our Kakorero on He Wakaputanga, Te Wakaminenga, Manamo Te Haki, o Nutirunei, New Zealand, o Te Ika, a Maui Keirunga, te riu, a Maui kei au. We stand here today as the mokopuna of our tupuna, they autographed here, wakaputanga te wakamininga manamotu haki o Nutu nei 1835 me te Trati o Waitani 1840. We have always maintained and inserted our tinoranga tiratanga as Ngāti Korokoro. We will not takahira mātauranga me te hitiri hitori that our tupuna left behind as tangata whenua, tangata moana, tangata ngāhiri. We are a hapu of our own. We will not be put into a bag with all sorts of collected hapu iwi. I have read other speakers' submissions to the Omapiri Opanani and Kohu wastewater treatment plant. It needs to be said that we cannot leave the blame on Whanau District Council, as we are all to blame. By this, I am meaning there is mentioning of hapu environmental plans. How was it adhered to? I agree it wasn't adhered to, but I also have to say that Whanau District Council are not at fault. Why is that? They thought that they were speaking to the hapu that is tangata whenua, tangata moana, tangata ngāhiri, namely Ngāti Korokoro Hapu, Ngāti Korokoro Hapu Trust, that holds its own tino ranga tira tanga. I need to say this was mentioned in Te Paparahi o Taraki 1040 at Tautihi by Ngāti Korokoro Hapu, Ngāti Korokoro Hapu Trust, disputing the Ngāti Korokoro Ngāti Parara me te Pouka o te wā hapu o Hokianga Nui a Kupe Environmental Hapu Management Plan. Community Liaison Group, again, as the mandated kaikorero of Ngāti Korokoro Hapu Trust, I had written to Whanau District Council asking why we were not involved in this group. Why was it not publicly advertised in the metropolitan papers, not only calling the hapu of Ngāti Korokoro as tangata whenua, tangata moana, tangata ngāhiri, but also for the community of Omapiri Opanoni. Instead, I have evidence that was done through appointing people from Marais. So I say, today, as an appointed kaikoru, kei whea te tikanga, kei whea te tika, kei whea te pono. Marais did not sign he waka putanga 1835 te waka menenga mana motu haki o nu tiranei me te triti o Waitangi 1840. Nor did Takiwa, Runanga, Māori committees, Māori council, or groups, or iwi as statutory creatures. It was rangatira hapu. Also regarding any cultural impact assessment reports, whether now rohe from Koti Maumaro through to Wamamari, this will require our approval and our consent. After seeing what has been happening within the last year, we really need to look at the top-down narrative of climate change imposed upon our whenua and peoples without our consent, to which these non-mandated and consented theories are now being included in conditions of contract with no debate or substantive evidence to justify its assumed inclusion. We also need to look at the development that is happening within the rohi of Ngāti Korokoro Hapu as tangata whenua, tangata moana, tangata ngāhiri. Knowing the current infrastructure cannot and is not accommodating the current waste treatment load upon our communities. As we speak, more consents are being railroaded in defiance of this salient fact. The structure for the wastewater treatment plant is already adversely affecting our whenua moana ngahere and clear and admitted breaches of the assumed unconstituted compliance rules and codes of the concurrent legislature. So today as tangata whenua, tangata moana, tangata ngahere, we need to sit with Far North District Council and Northland Regional Council to look at a better solution, establish jurisdiction so as to ensure the status and standing of our hapu is paramount in its terms of sovereign and dependent dominion, whereby we also hold imperium over our whenua, mai rano, te rohe o Ngāti Korokoro. I will now ask my whanaunga Clifford Morgan to speak. Ngā mihi, Sheena Ross, ni moitara mandate kai kōrero, Ngāti Korokoro hapu, Ngāti Korokoro trust. Kia ora.
Mauri ora, nā mihi e te mā, aroha mai e tātou mā ki te māmai, te riri, o te takahi, o te kaupapa tēnei, ke ronga tuwaiwai o nā uri tohu ranga tira, hapu mā, nā tangata whenua. Ano hoki nā tangata katoe, ke roto te korowai o Hokianga. Anō reira, nā mihi e nā manuhiri, ki te whare tēnei. Ano hoki nā mea katoa kai mahi o NRC, ano hoki FNDC, ano hoki nā mea service agencies. Nō reira ki te mihi, nā whakatau, nā whakamoimiti, karakia mai, waiata mai, ano hoki nā mea katoa, nā mihi, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Ano hoki ki te mahi kai mahi, kai tutuko o te tangata, te whānau lands, ano hoki nā mea katoa, nā mihi. Nō reira, ki te reo tuarua, just didn't want to put my back. Is that okay? Will this be recorded through if I speak from here? Right. Come on.
Peter, just bring the microphone in front of you. Just quite directional, you need to be down by your mouth.
How's that? How's that? Check.
Perfect.
Check. Got my Elvis voice on. Ano hoki ki te reo tuarua before the Northland Regional Council Hearings Panel, Ngāti Korokoro Hapu, Ngāti Korokoro Hapu Trust Appellant, and Far North District Council Respondent. In the matter of the Resource Management Act 1991, and in the matter of an application by Far North District Council Resource Consent Applications, App 00389 0103 and application 002 667 0104. Open only o Māpiri and Kohu wastewater treatment plants. Filed by Clifford Morgan, Royal, he uri o Karimoitara ahau, mandated kai kōrero o he wakaputanga o te rangatiratanga o Nuterini e raro mai hauraki, me tauiwi o runga 1835, ano hoki te tiriti o Waitangi 1840, te takahi, for and on behalf of Ngāti Korokoro Hapu Trust, dated this day, 19th of May, 2023, Anno Domini. Statement of evidence of Clifford Morgan, Royal, he uri o Karimoitara, ano hoki mandated kai kōrero o he wakaputanga, ano hoki ke tiriti. In regards to our whanaunga kai kōrero o Ngāti Korokoro Sheena Ross, filing number 90, I would also like to add what I'm speaking about today, on the 19th of May 2023 at this venue. Tēnei te mea o te whakapapa, ko Ngāti Korokoro te hapu, ko te Ramaroa te maunga tapu, ko Hokianga te moana awa, ko Matahaurua te waka, ko Marae Roa te marae, ko Clifford Morgan ahau. Synopsis. For and on the public record, let it be known I am here making a special appearance on behalf of myself and our hapu, standing as the beneficial and equitable primary source title holders of the unextinguished native title. I'm past the age of majority, acting on behalf of all known derivatives assigned by way of assumption to my firstborn Christian name. I tautoko the prior evidentiary claims and concerns of Alwhanonga, Sheena Ross, Moitra, Ni Moitra, Manded Kai Kōrero, for and on behalf of Ngāti Korokoro Hapu, Ngāti Korokoro Hapu Trust. By prior consensus of our hapu trustees, we state for and on the record, we do not accept any assumed, unconstituted, illegitimate, implied, express, constructive contracts and or any form of assumed joinder by any third parties, agencies, that we stand as the principles as uri tohu rangatira in relation to our own private sovereign alliances and friendship with the kings of the British Empire, namely George IV, George IX, King William IV, post Te Whakaputanga 1835 and Queen Victoria, RIP. By way of the British Statute Book, the Parliament, in brackets UK, for the purposes of reference only hereto, our mana as a sovereign independent dominion outside the jurisdiction of the British Empire is established historically and remains so to this day by way of independent acknowledgement and recognition via the British Statute Book 1817, 1823, 1828, including the Memorandum Enclosure number 38, correspondence relative to, in brackets, New Zealand, issued upon the command of Queen Victoria, dated the 13th of April 1840. Pages 68 and 69, emphasis. Further, reconfirmed and asserted by the highest collective power and authority of the British Empire via the Pacific Islands Protection Act 1872, 1875, and with emphasis, Section 7. Official notifications of Te Wakaminenga as a standing authority, this is our National Congress, in continuum as of March 2020 to date, have been received and acknowledged by the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council and the Supreme Court UK. Furthermore, that any questions we ask of the assumed unconstituted agents of the Crown Corporation, in capitals, Her Majesty Queen and Right of New Zealand, and all assumed constituted Crown agencies that remain unanswered, shall be deemed accepted as tacit agreement, by which silence will be affirmed as acquiescence. Our status and standing as a sovereign independent dominion remains unrebutted within our rohe, mana whenua, mana moana, mana tangata, mana nāhere, mana awa, ngā mea katoa, kei runga, kei raro, o Ngāti Korokoro Hapu, and hereby file the additional evidentiary findings as a matter of general, public and private record. Issues determined at law.
Kia ora, Mr. Morgan. Oh, mate. Kia ora. Just in regards to those issues, we're not disputing any of the information that you've got presented there. And in regards to the focus of our hearing, in terms of getting to the issues in regards to this application, there's a lot of information around those issues that are backdated. We're not canvassing those. It's not within our gambit of purvey. So just ask if you can move to your issues to be determined on page 4.
With respect, jurisdiction is everything. If we cannot assert our jurisdiction here, which is backed by law, and there are other issues to be determined, specifically with this kaupapa, this is what we request.
Yeah, so there's no question from us in terms of your jurisdiction.
So you accept that categorically on the record? Did you hear that, cousin? Okay, well, in terms of that, I just want to let it be known that I object to the not being able to expose the truth in this public forum for everyone to hear. This is not tika. And I appreciate the time that we were allotted, and as far as I know, we're still sticking to it. However, I will let everyone know that we can provide this data, if anyone is of interest, that clarifies the work of Dr. Judy Ward, first-class examiner, historian, Y774. It's all there for everyone to see. So, no data, let's move on. And it's quite damning, by the way. Okay, issues to be determined. Jurisdiction. Based upon the evidence filed unrebutted, we ask, where possible, the following questions be answered point by point. And we need to know this as a matter of record, e tātou mā, with respect. Upon which treaty, which version, and by which author does the Crown, in brackets New Zealand, and its service agencies base its sovereign power and authority upon? Kia ora. We'll take that as acquiescence. In terms of applicability of the past and concurrent corporate rules, codes and regulations, policies and procedures of the legislature, in brackets New Zealand, including the Acts RMA et al., what does the Crown Service agencies rely upon to apply an assumed, unconstituted and now established illegitimate process of misrepresentation? Kia ora. Take that as acquiescence. With respect, is the hearing panel acting as agents of the Crown, in brackets New Zealand? Kia ora. Take that as acquiescence. If so, and with respect, it's not for the agent to apply executive dictate to the principle, namely kaumātau. Henceforth, within our mana whenua, mana moana, mana nāhere, mana awa, mana tangata, you shall be answerable to the principles. Nauri tohu rangatira hapu o Ngāti Korokoro. For the purposes of objective reality, with the intention of quantifying the analysis of monitoring, measurement data, we, Ngāti Korokoro, hapu, Ngāti Korokoro Hapu Trust, require direct involvement with and access to all related parties, suppliers, BECA, staff. Added charges where applicable shall apply across our related rohe moana whenua, mana moana, mana tangata, mana nāhere, mana awa. Potential conflicts of interest, we require full disclosure and discovery of the criteria and conditions, if any, established by the FNDC in undertaking the services of all related expert witnesses. We require the commissioners of the hearing panel to explain how, should they rely upon the advice of those expert witnesses that have ostensibly rubber-stamped the pending consents, can the commissioners find in favour of the FNDC when it has been demonstrated they have failed in their specific duty of care, their obligations, acts ultra vires of the very rules to which they are supposed to be subject to, upon which all related agents of the Crown, in brackets NZ, enjoy their benefits of office. Should the commissioners deem this process acceptable, they will be equally culpable by way of civil and criminal proceedings pending, if necessary, under contract privity. Briefs of expert witnesses. And without wishing to repeat what may have already been brought up, parohamai, but it's very brief, we require clarity in relation to the aforementioned measurements and models relied upon to ostensibly ignore and bypass tikanga, the law of mana whenua, mana moana, mana tangata, mana nāhere, mana awa. A, evidence of Brett James Beansley. The focus on percentile measurements, unless corrected, avoid stating the 0 to 5% percentile of contaminants at the point of discharge. Does 0% represent, in terms of excess discharges, 100% contamination? The apparent focus and preference is of a far higher percentile, a far greater dilution. The elephant in the room is the antiquated technology relied upon to justify a failed system. Relationships, notwithstanding the challenges, the harm, injury we have suffered, both culturally, emotionally, mentally, we wish to state we are at a crossroads. If by way of dialogue we are able to set aside our animosities, the pathway forward shall be obtainable. This does not establish joinder. Rather, the way forward is by a way of maintaining relationships to transition and assist us in eventually taking a controlling interest in the services and infrastructure. A summary, remedy, solutions. Te ara tika me te pono me te aroha. Ethics. Integrity and competence in the public sector appear to have been compromised, including the administrative practices and processes which underpin ethical values and integrity. Such inefficiency leaves these constructs prone to corruption. The remedy requires transparency, integrity, legitimacy, fairness, responsiveness, efficiency and effectiveness. It is incumbent upon the respondents to prove otherwise. Thus far, we have three potential alternate solutions to address this very important kaupapa. Sourced offshore that are currently in the process of due diligence. So far, the technologies are proven, the scale and cost pending. These will ideally provide an alternate pathway to the current failed and injurious antiquated technologies and ideologies that continue to cause harm and injury to us. Uri tangata anō uri manu hiri. To eliminate the concurrent breaches, acts ultra vires by way of non-compliance, non-consent of these service agencies, the remedy we seek has yet to be quantified. However, there are matters, sovereign, cultural and commercial, that are sensitive, matters of which will be the subject of future hui. We require ongoing engagement. Purely as a transitional pathway forward, future relationships need to be developed that are aligned with tikanga, tika me te pono. Our self-determination is paramount. Added, an initial meeting in the private to discuss and work towards a way forward, firstly with our tūturu uri tohu rangatira hapu whānau. In closing, it is clear we are at an impasse. Realistically, it could take 2 to 3 years to give effect to these changes. Yet, based upon non-compliance issues, any further consents are not acceptable. The status quo of non-compliance and non-consent, although repugnant to Ngāti Korokoro Hapu, is for the time being a semi-functioning system versus none at all. The transitional remedy implementation required, both immediate, short and long term, require collaboration, cooperation, not conflict. We await your response in good faith. Nō reira, ngā mihi, ka muti te kōrero.
This waiata was written 13 years ago on the Rawene consents process. We've upgraded it a bit.
No reira, nā mihi e tātou mā, hapiti ona tātai hono, e nā mate haere, hapiti ona tātai hono ki te kanohi o rā, no reira tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou kātoa.
Kia ora. Kia ora. Thank you very much for tuning up today and speaking to us. And I really appreciate, Mr. Morgan, that you did skip on to the issues with which we have control over. It really helps us because, you know, as you're aware, we're stuck here in a box, a statutory box, and there's matters that we'll just be accepting from this hearing. No one here is challenging that.
Sure.
I'm really interested in your sentence there about the dialogue, and I hope that this week has been that dialogue where, and I've certainly seen everybody put aside their animosity and their emotion and the hurt to be able to give us the whānau this week to find a solution to go forward. So thank you. And I just wanted to say to you, if you weren't listening in this morning, that we've given a clear direction to the applicant that we're going to take some time to get this part of the process right in terms of conditions and where we go from here. But we've given the council a clear signal through Ms. Carruthers to take back that the upgrades to comply with the current conditions as conceived should be got on with urgency and have nothing to do with the outcome of this process. Now, just on that note, Ms. Carruthers did ask for clarification about the compliance matters that we did see that were a concern to us. I guess the most concern first up is, from what we've heard, I don't believe it's just a buoy that's missing at the end of the pipe, and I would like to see evidence of the pipe or the photos that were taken in the last maintenance check. And I think that is a matter of urgency, that discharge pipe, to prove to the community that discharge pipe is intact and that it's functioning, and it's not just a buoy that's But on our site visit, we could see evidence of the fact that the last pond has overflowed very recently, and in fact Frank Fitzpatrick was very open in his responses to us. So I hope we really do hope there's no consequence back on him for being very honest and open with his answers to questions to us. And he's a young man that the community should be proud of, because he's doing a very difficult job with next to no tools. He's building bits for the plant himself. He has made a piece of metal to cover the screen because it was so long without a cover that water was getting in there. And he has taken his own initiative to find a piece of metal that would fit, and has put that on himself. He showed us, and we could see, we could smell where the pond has overflowed very recently, which he thought hadn't got to the stream, but certainly had got down to the lower parts by where the old water treatment plant was. There was also, the wetland wasn't functioning as a series of ponds. There was overtopping from one wetland to the other, which is a concern. And of concern that we couldn't really look into, and I do have some photos that I plan to pass on for Alyssa to both the Regional Council and the District Council. But of concern to us is the one of the ponds was so high, and Frank was very surprised that from when he'd got the 60% alarm, there had been no more rain, so it was just the rain that was percolating through the system that caused that pond to come right up to the top. And I know Frank would like to think that it wasn't overtopping into the stream, but I suspect both of us thought that it was in fact overtopping the stream. So those are the compliance issues that we saw. So I hope that clarifies.
Yes, thank you.
So without hammering it on about that any further, I really just want to thank everybody. I'm going to try not to be emotional here. I have been to over 300 hearings in the 15 years that I've been an independent hearing commissioner, and I don't think I've ever felt the hurt and neglect of a community, and to hear the emotion. We acknowledge that hurt. And you should all be proud of the support that you show for each other in this process. We've been very privileged to sit on this side of the table and have you all come and share your kōrero with us. We're not going to miss these chairs, that's for sure. It's been a long week. I noticed you've gone from the knees to a
I upgraded and it's the last day.
We've all evolved over time. I can't tell you what our decision will be now, but I can tell you that we're absolutely convinced on this side of the table that this community has the heart and the skills and the unity to find a solution to this problem. And just in case you hear a little story back from one of your lovely tamariki, on day 1 or day 2, I was in the toilets and I found a jersey in there, so I thought that's odd. So I put the jersey outside the toilet and I went to the toilet, and as I came out came this little girl and she went, "Boo!" And I went, "What?" And she goes, "Oh, did I get you?" And I said, "Yeah, you got me." And she goes, "Oh, you're hurt." She goes, "You're the one down the front of the room." I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh." She said, "So, are you going to make the decision for us?" And I said, "I can't tell you that at this point." She goes, "But why?" And I said, "Well, it's top secret, so if I told you, I'd have to kill you." And she looked at me as if to say, "Really?" And then as I walked out the door, she said, "Really?" So I thought that was beautiful. I just wanted to share that with you. So if you hear that the commissioner's going to kill one of you, it's me. So I'd just like to give a big thanks to everyone. Well, first of all, I've talked to you this morning, and I hope you all understand the process from here. We will be back. We will come back, and we can just keep this process open. And as in, it's not closed. We're not closing the hearing. It might be a few weeks before we come back, but hopefully we can all come back on the same page that we're on now, and we can get down to business and make the most of the day that we will have, and hopefully it won't take a whole day. So I don't want to talk anymore about process. We will talk to you via the lovely Alyssa and via minutes, so that you'll be all clear of the process. It's likely to be kind of the first week of July as we're looking towards price and availability on this side of the table and this side of the table. Our thanks to the Land family, the McAway family. I know it's dangerous, I'm going to leave some people out, but I think what we've seen in the kitchen and the support for the community and things, it's just a shame that we've separated ourselves because the Kai's look awesome all week. And I think Dallas King, I think you all realise the role she's played in your community, bringing together. My thanks to the applicants team. It's been a very strange week, and you are individual people, you are here with your professional hats on, and it's, Ms. Pala, it's taken head off to you. You've given a lot to this community. So kia ora. Thank you to Maria. He's been awesome. He's not only been here to support you and translate. I know there's been some criticism of him. We've done the best that we can in the world that we live in. It would be pretty weird to be sitting with head muffs on and a mihi whakatau, to be honest. Yeah. So that just is what it is. So thanks, Mararoa, you've supported not only all the people in the room, but us. And last but not least, Alyssa, I don't think anybody understands just how difficult it is to get a process like this to happen. And she spent 5 hours in this room just setting up on day 1. But also, I noticed during hearing processes, she turns from the person that everybody takes their anger out on when they're wanting to get into the process and to everyone's best friend. So, you know, she really does have a difficult job. So thanks, Alyssa. And all I can say is thank you everyone for your respect this week and your manaakitanga, and we look forward to seeing you again. Just got to pass over to Martin Rory, wanted to just say a few words for us. We really appreciate whoever the most appropriate person is to give us a karake on the way out. So we'll just get Martin Rory and say a few words, please.
Wai no katia ke te whare tēnā tātou. Kei ngā hapu maho Hokianga e mihi nei. Tēnei rā te whakawaha ake. I tā te kōrero i tā mātou tāinga mai ringa i te rangi Māori ana e hoki ana i ringa i te rangi Māori. E hara i te mea e tūkumero e nei kōrero i te mea, kua ki te anō, i ngā kare a roto, e pupu ake ana i roto i tēnei a huatanga, ko putamai, ko hora i aki wanganui a tātai tēnei rā. Hoi rā i ka mā tēnei rā te tō i ake ngā kōrero, tākautai moana i ore mai roto i tō tātai whare, ai te roa ngāke o tēnei wiki. A me tā mātai wai mari e te noho ki rote ki aua kōrero, rāre e mihi anu. E tō ia tonu ti ana a ngā mihi, ki ngā ringaringa ki ngā waiwai o tō tēnei kaupapa o tō kautau kaupapa, a tēnā rā koutou. Nā reira, kei aku nui, kei aku rahi, ka wai hoku kōrero e konei, engari e mihi nei, ki ngā hunga katoa, a ko ki mai, ai tēnei whare, te roa mō tēnei wiki, tēnā koutou, a tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
I mō I tō tātou kariki e mi whoto tēnei, a kia koutou, mai te rātuatahi, kia awhi mai te rōpū a manaki kai I muri rā, nā koutou te raurau, nā mātou te raurau, a ka ora ai te tangata, a mai tō koutou, koha moni, koha kai, koha ringa raupā, a ka haere māmā noi tō tātou mahi, tuku te mihi kia koutou, awhi mai I tātou tēnei wā, tā kia ora mai tātou.
Kia ora mai tātou. Mai te mane nāku I kapi, I hoki katoa, tātou rakatira. Ana tēnei mō te tātou kapinga, a tātou whenua, o kone e whakamutu, kone maungatani wha te maunga. Tāpapa te awa ka rere, te awa te pō, anā, o te wahapu, Hokianga, whakapau krake, tātou katoa e ono. E mihena, Hokianga mihi ki te tepu, kia koutou. Mai te mane, I tautarangi Māori, whaingi o tātou. Nā, kanuhi te kanuhi, tērā tā ahua tātou mātou tūpuna I mō. And to all our cousins, our Pākehā cousins, e mihena, kei kone ki te tautoko, kei kaupapa. O tērā taha, Hokianga taumarere, e pēranga te ahua taumarere ki Hokianga. A tātou I whiri, for the solution. I spoke about it the other night. So I have to get my scientists to check on this rongo I've been taking. The way of the manuka. But I'm here to Hindu, they're taking the oil off first. And I've been drinking it. I came out from Australia last week, I couldn't go on a plane 4 months ago. Couldn't walk. Now, he rongo tera. But the way of the kanuka, but I'm here to Hindu, they were exporting the oil. So that's another solution. We'll have to wait for another day. That's what I'm saying. Rakau pick ana mui a koutou, ana tēnei mai maungatani whakarongo rua, ana kei tēnei taha te awa ahau. Ana ki te api, ki ngā kaumātou, Emla, where's Uncle John? O koutou, ngā kaumātou, I'm still a peepee because I'm only 79 and a bit. Rere tātou mā, kai ki te wā mō tēnei huihuinga ātā hua, mai te mane, tai ki te praira nei. Ki te mahara tunu, ki ngā mahara, ko rātou ku weki te kōrui, ki te kōro ki te kōe, ko rātou moe, e moe. Ko tātou a uri, ana, ko koutou, ngā rangatira mō ngā rāke te haere mai. Reira, he ngā rangatira koutou mai Ngāti Prau, ka mahara ki wera ngā kaumātua, I wera ngā haerenga. No reira, kore whānau te tangane, tuku te mihi mō te kapinga, mā rangatira o tēnei kāinga o tātou te kapi, o wakau o tērata. Wana he tūna. Ki te tautoko. Kai, langa tira tēnei. Pera tāua tāta mātua. We sit across the table ka whakawhiri here. That's the solution. Wana. Me here, me here. Te rere Cyril, ko koutou kunga te tautoko. Koutou ki konei huri no, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Mai o ngā puri, o te o
tēnei rā ka mihi atu ki ngā hapu katoa o te riua Hokianga, i tai mai ki te whakatapatui o rātou kaupapa, ki boi te aroaro o ngā komihana. Tēnā koutou. Ono, I want to say thank you to our community for coming together with regard to the kaupapa of our wāna. Kia ora koutou. I want to acknowledge my mate Mataroni here. Hey, when I see Mataroni in there, scissors go, chair brother, kia kaha, kia. So, kia kaha koe mai, bro. Not to ie nei mahi ki te tau te kaunihina. Sharon and Reginald, tēnā koutou. On behalf of the people of Hokianga, we want to say thank you for the respect that you've shown to our people and for the opportunity that you've given for all of the people that live in this community of Hokianga to be heard. A stellar job done by both of you. Kia ora. Now I had to acknowledge this lady over here because I heard she's actually the big chief that runs it. So, I ngā mihi atu ki ake. Mihi ana ki te hāpai o ki muri e hohepa. O rua katoa whānau me te iwi i tai mai ki te āwhina, te manaki i te tangata, i tō tātou whānau i tai mai. Ka tira. Kia tau anō te rangi maari e tango o te atua ki roto ki tō tātou whare. Tā tū mai rā kia tātou e hui nei he whānau kotahi. Te nāka huri o tātou whakaaro ki tō tātou kaihanga. I te putunga mai o te rātai noa ki tō rengitanga, o te ingo i hua kia whakapaingu. Whakapaingia kia tautunu o na manakitanga ki runga kia tātou e noho nei te taho tō tātou moana o Hokianga. I ino e tunu atu ki a koe, mo ngā kaupapa, mo ngā kōrero, ko hora hia ki mua ki ngā komihana i te rānei, ko koe tuni ki mua ki muri hei arataki hei tohutu i a mātou. Ko koe ana hoki hei whakakahi i a mātou, kia whai krōri ai koe i rotu i a mātou mahi katoa. He mea timata, he mea mahi, he mea whakaoti anō i rotu i a koe, kia whiwhi ai mātou ki te ora tonu, ki te mea ata whai tia mai ne e koe, ko iru kraiti hoki tō tātou ariki. Arena mai hua no tātou e manaki mana tātou e tiaki. Mana anō e mea kia tia hoi hoku te māramatanga o na karuhi ki runga ki tēnei o tātou. Aia nei, o ake tunu atu, āmene ki te iwi.
Āmene, ka ki te whānau.